Our featured story tonight, we're talking all about the third assassination attempt against President Trump at the White House Correspondents Dinner this weekend. It's like, man, everybody wants to kill this guy. What is up with that? You ever think at a certain point, it's like, maybe you're putting something bad out into the universe if everybody's trying to kill you all the time? But anyway, not to victim blame, but it was a third assassination attempt at the White House Correspondents Dinner. Seems to be another resistance liberal nut job. School teacher from California. He appears to be black or partially black. He booked a room at the Washington Hilton where the White House Correspondents' Dinner was being held. And funnily enough, he checked into his hotel room with a shotgun, a handgun, and a knife the day before the dinner. So think of it. The Washington Hilton is hosting the White House Correspondents' Dinner with President Trump, Vice President Vance, FBI Director Kash Patel, HHS Secretary RFK Jr., Pete Hegseth, Secretary of War. The whole government is in attendance the following day. By the way, we're in the middle of a war with Iran, whose supreme leader declared a fatwa to kill everybody before he was martyred. Trump himself, there's been 2 assassination attempts against him so far. And the day before this momentous occasion, some random person was able to check into a hotel room with a shotgun and a handgun and a knife in his bag. How is this possible? How does this even happen? And he says that. He said in his manifesto, he said, I'm surprised they just let me check in. I mean, could you imagine? And I don't want to sound, maybe this is going to sound a certain way, but imagine that. Imagine you get on a train and you're thinking, I'm going to unalive the government in Minecraft tomorrow. You got a bag with a shotgun. You go to the hotel. You're like, hi, I'm here to check in. My name's Nick Fuentes. Here's my license and credit card. What's going through your head? You're thinking are there going to be x-ray scanners? Is there going to be any kind of security protocol here? He gets up to his hotel room. He's probably thinking, how did I make it this far? And so this is how it starts. Following night, the dinner starts, and Trump, I believe, is on the first floor. On the second floor is where the check-in is for the event. The shooter bum rushes the security checkpoint and starts blasting with his shotgun. Secret Service returns fire. He falls to the ground, although it's not clear that he was shot. Maybe he fell. They apprehended him, and that was that. Nobody was hurt. One police officer was shot, apparently by the shooter. It isn't clear, actually, if the police officer was shot by Secret Service or another police officer, or if it was the would-be assassin, but he was hit in his bulletproof vest and recovered later the same night. So he appears to be fine. Guy was apprehended. He did publish a manifesto. The manifesto they just keep getting worse. The manifesto says something like, surprise to all my friends and family, but no, I wasn't on a break. I was trying to kill the president. And he basically says Trump is a pedophile and a rapist and a murderer, and he's going to kill him for all those reasons. And it's about what you would expect. And it's a big nothing burger, I suppose. Now, this is a story. We're going to read through it just briefly. This is from the New York Times, and then we'll talk a little bit about it. Just going to go over some of the details here. It says, quote, a California man who the authorities say ran through a security perimeter and fired a gun outside a packed black tie gala in Washington on Saturday was charged on Monday with trying to assassinate President Trump. Prosecutors said the man, named Cole Allen, 31, of Torrance, California, came to the nation's capital with the intention of carrying out a political assassination. He brought a pump-action shotgun, a .38 caliber handgun, and 3 knives. In a federal affidavit unsealed on Monday, an FBI agent said that around 8:40 p.m. on Saturday, Mr. Allen approached a security checkpoint inside the hotel where Mr. Trump, Vice President Vance, and members of the cabinet were attending the dinner in the ballroom one floor below. Mr. Allen ran through a magnetometer holding a 12-gauge pump-action shotgun, and Secret Service agents heard a loud gunshot. One agent was shot in the chest but was wearing a bulletproof vest. At a news conference after Mr. Allen's court appearance, the Attorney General said that the injured agent drew his gun and fired 5 times at Mr. Allen, who fell to the ground and was arrested. Mr. Allen was not shot and had only minor injuries. In addition to the shotgun, Mr. Allen was also in possession of a .38 caliber pistol at the time of the arrest. The sound of gunfire outside the ballroom led to a security lockdown as guests in tuxedos and ball gowns crouched under their tables. Mr. Trump and members of his administration were rushed out of the ballroom unharmed. Shortly before the attack, Mr. Allen sent an email to his family and a former employer in which he expressed anger at the administration and the president. Administration officials were the suspect's targets, apparently prioritized from highest ranking to lowest, according to a copy of the roughly 1,000-word document shared by 2 law enforcement officials not authorized to disclose the information. So this is what happened, and I said this at the beginning of the show, and I said this on Twitter. I don't know what it is about this, but I really just don't care. And I'm not...
Right, and we see he's not the only one who doesn't seem to care, right? From what we see out there, it looks like a lot of people have the same sentiment, because you have many people thinking that, oh, it's just a psyop to move away attention from all that is going on in the Middle East, as well as the Epstein files, right? So a lot of people are thinking that that is related to that, and that is maybe why this event might have been potentially staged, right? That is the narrative out there on the internet. Now, there is no evidence of that, but it looks like a lot of people are just staying focused on the issues that are really itching at them, which is the cost of living, the employment market, and then also like the war in the Middle East that doesn't seem to be making situations any better.
Not sure exactly why that is. I saw other people say basically the same thing, but as the details have come out, and I really just don't have any kind of, I don't have a take. I don't really have much to say. When we've heard all the takes, I think that there really are about this. This is a left-wing person who is radicalized, obviously. Motivation was to kill the president, radicalized by anti-government sentiment. And it seems like this is a guy that just went postal. This is some...
Yeah, so I wonder, like, what do you guys think? Is this like an angrier world that we were warned about? I think this is a slippery slope, right? When we start to say, oh, it's just like a radicalized leftist. Oh, it's a radicalized rightist, if you call them that, right? And we don't want this. I don't think that this is going to solve anything, right? If anything, if, God forbid, the guy had been successful on Saturday, what do you think the response is going to be from the radicalized right, right? It just sounds like, could it be like a civil thing, right? Where we have the left now fighting against the right, which is, again, more division and just exactly where they want us, fighting, arguing, and distracted.
Lunatic that just went crazy. And you're seeing more and more of that. I don't know what that is exactly, if that is social isolation. Maybe AI is playing a role in that. There's no indication of that, but I feel like that's increasing psychosis lately. A lot of drug use lately. I feel like there's a lot of trends underlying, or maybe they're kind of undercurrents happening beneath society, which are causing a lot of people to lose their minds. However, I don't think there's anything that interesting really to say about this other than that. Another person went crazy. It's another left-wing person radicalized against the government. I would add, if there's anything else to say, it's another case of the Secret Service being completely incompetent. How is this even possible?
That is a good point, right? How is it possible that someone goes in there armed to the teeth, right? Like guns, knives, and then they make it in like even close enough to close proximity of the president of the United States. Yeah, I agree with Nick there. It sounds like a complete failure, right, on the security side. Like he never should have even been allowed anywhere near the president of the United States.
I think that's really almost the only thing that you can say about this specific incident is how is it even possible? Like I said, think about the situation that we are in. We are in a state of war. And it is true that the Ayatollah of Iran declared a fatwa against the United States and called on all the martyrs and all the believers to attack the United States, which makes this a high-risk environment. It's also true that the president has been told, and law enforcement and intelligence agencies have also said, that potentially Trump was being targeted by Iran from the beginning. I think that's Israeli propaganda.
Right.
However,
we did hear something similar to that, right? I think during the one in Pennsylvania, like the initial attempt in Pennsylvania, we heard that it was something to do with Iran, right? Like rumor has it that like Iran might have known what happened there as well. But these are all just speculative. Nobody really knows. Now, I see a lot of people thinking that the one in Pennsylvania was also staged. But I mean, if that was staged, then I would say that that is highly elaborate, right? Because he apparently was even injured on his ear. So it just seems like, why would he go through such lengths? And what is he trying to prove? Really, just to win an election? He would almost take himself out. So I don't know. I don't know what to believe anymore, to be honest, guys. Let me know in the chat. What do you guys think? It's really weird times for sure, where you have like the president of the United States being like attempted time and time again, people attempting to take him out. It just seems like a... And then if you ask DJT, he says, oh, well, this is normal stuff, right? He says it's normal, it's expected, and he's not the first. But I think this is the first time I've heard of a president that they've attempted to take away his life on 3 occasions within like a year. So obviously he's definitely getting under some skins. And another thing I want to add is that I think that might be why a lot of people also trusted DJT, right? Because if you see like, okay, it looks like they're trying to take him out, so it means that he might be on our side, and perhaps he's actually against like the system, right? We thought he was our man, right? People thought he was their man, because if he wasn't their man, then why would they be attempting to take him out? So I think that is all part of the play.
this is something that our own intel law enforcement agencies have independently said. So you think about the situation, we're at war. The Ayatollah has called on his supporters to attack us. Law enforcement and the intelligence community have said there's an active Iranian threat against the president, whether you believe that or not. They have said that in the past for years. And yet somehow somebody was able to check into the hotel where the entire cabinet would be, not just the president, with 2 loaded guns and 3 knives. And he wasn't apprehended until he, bum rushed the escalator to actually break into the room? How is that even possible? And you have to ask yourself, what if he had a bomb? What if he had a pipe bomb in his suitcase instead of a loaded gun? What if he had some kind of...
That's a very excellent point, Mr. Fuentes, because yes, what if he had like a bomb, right? So it's getting dangerous out here, I tell you. Like right now, I think you would have to be crazy to go anywhere near DJT at this point. Clearly, he is wanted, right? He's somehow wanted for one reason or the other. And I don't agree with like attempting to take away someone's life, because I don't think that like we can give life as humans. So I don't think that you should take a life. If you can't give life, you can't take a life that you didn't give. And even if you gave that life, like you're not God. So I don't think anybody should be taking matters into their own hands. Besides, I don't think it's going to solve anything. It's just going to exacerbate the situation and make it more volatile.
A device, whether that's a nail bomb or a dirty bomb or who knows, a chemical agent. If this was a more sophisticated attacker, this could have been a catastrophe. Mm-hmm. This would have been a mass casualty event.
Yeah.
You're not talking about just potentially wiping out half of the cabinet, including the president and vice president, but also all these people in attendance. And what would we be saying at this point? if it was some kind of a suicide bomber, again, if it was anything even a little bit more sophisticated than a couple of close-range firearms and some knives, and some knucklehead idiot who thought he was just going to literally bum rush the checkpoint, it'd be a very different story. How is this possible? Especially, how is it possible, again, even the situation with Iran and everything else notwithstanding, how is it possible after there have already been 2 assassination attempts against the president? It doesn't bode well. And it raises some interesting questions. This is where people get a little bit conspiratorial. And this now always accompanies everything that happens, everything like this, or even anything not like this that happens. People naturally start to ask, is this even real? Who is this person? Is it really Secret Service incompetence? Is it that simple?
I really don't think that
because if it is,
that
that's
simple.
pretty disturbing.
I don't think it's that simple at all. And I think, people don't know what to believe anymore, myself included. Nobody knows what's real, what's not real. Even the whole red, blue, people are starting to question how real that is. And a lot of people are starting to wake up to the possibility that perhaps we're being gamed, right? Given the illusion of choice, while we actually don't have any, right? Because it's just both sides are like two wings on the same bird, essentially. So people are starting to wake up to these facts or like these ideas. And I think it probably scares the powers that be.
Disturbing. And I'm not even sure which is more disturbing. Or is it something else? Was there another stand-down order? Is it the case that the president just doesn't have an active security detail right now? Who knows why that would be?
Yeah, why wouldn't he have a security detail, right? Like if you're going to other countries, snatching their leader, then you have to expect that like there might be some retaliation, right? I know that the US are the most powerful. They have the strongest military. They're the hottest country, as DJT would say time and time again. I know all that, but still, you can't get complacent, right? If you're going to be attacking and kidnapping other people's leaders, then you need to strengthen your own security detail around your president, right? So it's not really adding up. I agree with Nick here.
Is there some entity seeking regime change? Maybe some entity that would be pleased to see the president get attacked? Is that perhaps why the event was not secured? Is there a deliberate stand down? And honestly, you don't know. There's no way to know.
There's no way to know, but we did know, and we did see it on the news with the Butler, Pennsylvania attempt, right? Apparently the guy literally was blatantly out in the open with his rifle, made his way up to the roof, and many people are saying that it was a complete and utter stand down. No way to confirm this, but like apparently even the president, DJT, doesn't even really want to really investigate that particular matter, right? There's been reports that says that he doesn't really want to follow up with the investigation on that. So it just really raises a lot of questions, right? Like there's no way that the security detail around the president, or like at that time he was running for president, right? There's no way that something like this can be happening in the US, where we have people running around with guns around like a presidential candidate, or worse, even the actual president.
And it's hard to say, because on the one hand, you'd have to say Secret Service is completely out to lunch. And, you know, whether they're trying not to protect the president or they're not trying to not protect the president, well, they're not. They're not doing their job. And so the only question is whether that's an intentional stand down on behalf of some kind of incomprehensibly complex, shadowy government force, or it's just sheer incompetence. But to me, these are really the only things that can be said about the actual event. Here is, to me, the bigger picture about this, and this is what really makes me sick to my stomach. So, you know, we could go down all these different avenues, and to me, that's really not interesting. You can talk about the left has radicalized people against the government, and you could say Secret Service is incompetent, and you could say it's a conspiracy. They wanted Trump to go. They're sending a message. Time travel is a factor, apparently. If you know what I'm talking about, there's a time travel element that people are talking about to this one as well. we could go down all those different avenues. To me, that's not particularly interesting. I would say, and maybe this is a good segue, let's say, for example, people like to talk about the radicalization against the president. I don't actually think that's even valid anymore because the president himself is celebrating when people die. So how does that work? And I know that two wrongs don't make a right, and I know that doesn't rationalize or justify or make acceptable murder or an assassination, especially of the nation's leader. But you think about the kind of guy that Trump has become. He wasn't always like this. Maybe there were shades of this that had broken through. Maybe aspects of his personality shined through and surfaced at one time or another. But you have to admit, Trump is totally unhinged now. And he's a completely different person. And now I would...
No, not really. I think he was always unhinged. It's just that people thought it was funny then, right? Because he wasn't in power, so he wasn't actually actively holding the powers to be able to really make things go left. But now that he's president, he's like the fact that he's unhinged, right, and very volatile is now really problematic. So people start to see it now. But he's always been one to talk and like really write on his Truth Social, right? He's always been known for being controversial, making controversial takes. And just like his supporters, like Robert Barnes was saying, right, we see him shrug his shoulders at like people dying or people being threatened, their lives being threatened. He shrugs his shoulders at that, right? So they blamed it on perhaps like a frontal lobe dementia. But I don't think so. I think that this is how he's always been. It's just that now that he's the president, commander in chief, then now we see that actually he is completely off the rails. And he is an off the rails man with power. So very dangerous.
Say he's just downright wicked. Mm-hmm. He's a downright wicked and evil leader. So, for example, when Robert Mueller dies, Trump is literally celebrating on Truth Social and saying, I'm glad he's dead. It's good news that this person has died because he was a terrible person. I don't know that I believe in karma, but I do believe that there are such a thing as cause and effect. And I'm not going to say that Trump saying that made a crazy person want to kill him. However, you do realize that there's a bit of a double standard. You can't defend every single thing that Trump says like that when Robert Reiner's kid killed his parents in a horrific, brutal, double homicide, murder-suicide, and Trump says, well, he hated Trump. He didn't like Trump, so that's funny. When Robert Mueller dies and Trump celebrates, when he compares himself to Jesus, when he says he's going to annihilate Persian civilization, can you really then turn around and say it's the left, it's everybody else that has made the rhetoric so toxic?
Exactly. He can only blame himself, to be honest. I think if we're talking about who has made the rhetoric so toxic, it's actually DJT. I won't even say the MAGA people. It is DJT himself, single-handedly. He tweets and he truths and he spews all sorts of hateful things that obviously has caused a lot of division. And I think that he's the one that has really made it so toxic right now. So if anybody's talking about lowering the temperatures, it should be coming from his side. It should be coming from his administration. Nowhere else. You need to look at yourselves.
You don't really have a leg to stand on anymore.
No, you don't. It's true.
You did. Maybe 10 years ago, there was a time when the left was absolutely powerful and it was not symmetrical at all. There was no equivalency at all. And the left wanted us dead and they were explicit about it. And right-wingers were pleading and begging for mercy and apologizing and just wanted to be understood. It's not really like that anymore. Let's be honest. And so I can actually empathize with the left a little bit. It does ring hollow when Melania Trump and Erica Kirk go on Twitter and they want to bitch about the rhetoric We need to turn the temperature down. Oh, it's gotten so crazy. Well, look,
Yeah.
it's kind of like you live by the sword,
Yeah.
you die by the sword.
Exactly. You go around threatening an entire civilization, right? And don't be asking for temperature to be reduced, right? It starts with you. It starts with Trump. He needs to lower the temperature first, and then we can see. But I think that it's a little bit funny, like them calling for to lower the temperatures when their man DGT is the one that is actively adding gasoline to the fire.
You don't want to go on Twitter every day and say, I'm glad Robert Mueller is dead. I'm glad Robert Reiner got murdered by his son. We're going to annihilate Persian civilization. If you care about Epstein, I don't need your vote. You're an idiot. If you're doing those kinds of things, and then the left calls you a horrible person and a monster, again, I'm not trying to rationalize that or justify that in any way. I don't believe murder is ever the solution. I'm a Christian. And I don't believe that two wrongs make a right. It doesn't justify, because it is true that the left, their rhetoric is violent and they want me dead. They tried to kill me too. And they tried to kill Trump and they killed Charlie Kirk. But in order to have the moral high ground,
apparently, I don't know if you guys have heard these rumors as well, but apparently it might not even have been the left who took out Charlie Kirk. Right, I actually have a stream that I'm gonna I have planned for you guys, but none of this is obviously proven. Right, these are all just speculations. Right, but still an interesting thing to look at, because I think when you're trying to say, oh, the left took out Charlie Kirk, nobody knows that for sure. Right, some people have said that it might have been a particular nation in the Middle East that have strong back in by the U.S. I'm not gonna call their name, but you already probably know. But we'll keep the clip playing here.
You can't go on Twitter then and say, oh, it's this rhetoric. We all need to relax and turn the temperature down. You can't really do that when you're a wicked person. You can't do that when you're reveling in the same kind of stuff. Now, more to the point, this is why I say this is a segue. So we're all supposed to believe that this is a horrible atrocity. We're all supposed to be so broken up about this. How long did it take after this incident that then all the pro-Trump influencers turned it into a social media campaign? This is what I noticed. Immediately after the assassination attempt, it was literally every pro-Trump influencer on Twitter clearly got the memo. And I don't mean that in a manner of speaking. I don't mean that as a figure of speech. I mean, they literally got a memorandum. They literally got the memo. They're in a group chat. They're employed by one of these agencies, and they got sent the talking points and then money. They were told, all right, pro-Trump influencers, here's our next social campaign for $300. If you could just post the following message, and the message was, this is why we need a White House ballroom. I'll read a sampling because it is so on the nose, it's so blatant, you can't even exaggerate it.
Interesting.
And
Interesting. So it looks like they're trying to spin this to be part of the reason why the ballroom is so important. Because remember, the ballroom caused a lot of uproar where people were like, is this your priority? You have Americans that are going without food, the job market crisis, the cost of living crisis, the war crisis, right? And then you're talking about a ballroom. So now it looks like they're trying to spin this into this is why we need the ballroom. This is why the ballroom needs to be bulletproof. But really, why are we talking about a ballroom? It just seems not a priority, except for DJT and his followers. They think that's a priority, but really, we have many more pressing matters right now. But let's hear what else Nick has to say here.
Drew Colvin from Turning Point USA writes, this is why President Trump needs to build the White House ballroom. Libs of TikTok says, this is why we need Trump's ballroom. Jack Posobiec. Thank God President Trump is building a ballroom at the White House. See, so we switch that one around. Wall Street Maverick. We need the White House ballroom. Brylan Hollyhand. Build the White House ballroom ASAP. Nick Adams. Build the White House ballroom now. Randy Fine. We'd better never hear a peep from anyone complaining about a White House ballroom. All of those within hours of each other. That's not a coincidence. That's not like they all had the same idea. Do you know what that is? All of these people are being paid. Do you understand how this works? In the old days, politicians and corporations and foreign governments would engage lobbyists. They would pay specialists lots of money, and this is heavily regulated by the government, and there are disclosures, and there are rules, and there are monetary limits, and all kinds of things, and those lobbyists would use their connections in media, in government, among the political movers and shakers, and they would try to accomplish the goals of those political parties, corporations, and foreign governments. But with the advent and deregulation of social media, now lobbying takes a different form. And now foreign governments, corporations, and political parties and entities, now they just pay influencers. This is a real thing. This is not metaphor. This is how it works logistically. They pay influencers. They pay them hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars, sometimes more than that. It's completely unregulated. It's totally under the table, and it literally works like that. They say, we will pay you $3,000 if you post a TikTok, and here's the script. And the script has to say this, this, and this.
And honestly, like, who would even blame anyone for taking such buyouts, right? In this current economy right now, like, heck, I'm like, where's my $3,000 check? Nah, I'm kidding. But for real, like, this probably explains why they're able to get people to do this, right? Because things are so hard out there, you know? So people are just hurting for money right now. They'll do whatever. It reminds me of Nigeria as well. Like in Nigeria, you have during the election time, people like these politicians, they end up giving away bags of rice and food to the voters just to buy votes. And then people are, oh yeah, you see, he cares about us. They care about us. And then once they win the election, then it's back to business as usual. You peasants, you absolute peasants. That's how it be out there.
They tell the influencers, make it your own. Say it in your own words, but we need this hashtag, and these are the points to emphasize, and these are the things that you have to say. You send us the TikTok. It's not even dependent on engagement. It's not dependent on how many people see it, like it, comment on it. It's just that they do it, and then they get the payout. That is what this is. So think of it. Some psycho goes to the White House ballroom to eliminate the entire government in the middle of a war after Trump has experienced 2 assassination attempts so far. His entire cabinet is in attendance. If this was a more sophisticated attacker, he would have wiped out the whole government and hundreds of other people. Would have been successful if not for his own incompetence, because Secret Service has either stood down because
he could have gotten away with it if it wasn't for those meddling kids, right?
Of a grand conspiracy, or they're just not that competent. Within minutes of the assassination attempt, at the same time that we're being told this moralizing about the rhetoric from the left, and we have a problem, and people are doing another drive-by cry at the cameras about the horror, this is so sad. Within hours of the shooting, we get a social campaign about what? The White House ballroom. The GOP is already shelling out
That's a
their
little
thousands
bit crazy,
of
right? That's a little bit crazy. The fact that like something like this happens and people are talking about a ballroom, it shows you the times that we're living in, really. The fact that Iran continues to put out animated, what's that thing called? They continue to put out animated, what are those things called again? Like those Lego videos. They continue to put out Lego videos in the middle of like a full-out war. It really shows you the signs of the times that we're living in, right? It's a digital age. It's an online age. Everybody be online. And really, like, we just need our elected officials to really get to work, right? Get some work done and make things more affordable for people. That's really all we're asking for, right? But instead of that, they'll rather like have wars and rumors of wars and just all these things that don't really add value to the citizens' lives.
Dollars. All right, Brylan Hollyhand. All right, Nick Adams, Jack Posobiec, Libs of TikTok. You know the drill. Here's our campaign. Build the ballroom. And it's what it is. And they're flooding the zone. Again, consider, they don't even measure engagement. It's just about flooding the zone. On X, on TikTok, on Instagram, just flooding the zone with repetition, influencers big and small, micro-influencers, larger influencers, and just putting that in front of everybody's face so that everybody is thinking, so that your coworker, your vaguely conservative, knucklehead chud coworker is going to come into the office on Monday with a hot take of his own making. He's going to be in the break room or the cafeteria and go, well, this is why we need the White House ballroom. And you want to go, that's not your idea. The Matrix told you.
Yeah, like that was so funny. If anybody's talking about a ballroom right now in this economy, what we need is not a White House ballroom. What we need is like a cessation of all aggressions all around the world, right? Everywhere. Like we need to stop fighting. And then countries need to focus on their countries. You know how it's said, like, to your tent, O Israel. Everybody needs to go back to their tent. And then we need to start focusing on our own homes. Charity begins at home. And then we need to build back better, right? And that's just what we need to do. We don't need to be talking about any ballrooms or any wars. We just need everybody to just put down their arms, lay down your arms. Let's get to the diplomatic table and let's get back to like normal, right? This is not in anybody's interest. All this fighting, all this commotion is not in anybody's interest. Well, it's not in the citizens' interest. I don't know whose interest it could be in. Maybe Palantir or anybody that is like buying stocks, then sure, it could be in your interest. But to your average citizen, these wars are not in our interest.
To think that. You are in a media matrix. You are in a simulated reality. It's not real. You think you're looking at reality. You're not. You're looking at a screen. You're looking at a timeline that was populated with content by an algorithm. Who controls the algorithm? The content was paid to be created by people we don't even know, benefactors, political parties, corporations, foreign governments that we don't even know. And you scan this and you think you're making choices of who to follow and what you like and what you agree with, when in reality, it is the illusion of choice. You are brought into the casino.
I love how he added that part there, the illusion of choice, right? Because people are here like being like, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican, but really if you ask any of these elites, right, they'll just be like, you are probably a useless eater, right? That's pretty much how they see a lot of us, right? So if you look at a clip from Yuval Noah Harari, right, where he called human beings useless eaters, and then their concern is really, what are they going to do with these useless eaters once it becomes apparent that they no longer need the useless eaters, like where AI can do their jobs. So like, what are they going to do with us? That's really their concern, really. And then if for anybody that's still thinking that, like I'm on this side or I'm on that side, they still don't get it yet. It's like, there are sides, but it's not the sides that you're thinking. So you might be there fighting with your neighbor who's a leftist, or you might be there fighting with your neighbor who's on the right. But then both of you are going through the same day-to-day problems. Cost of living is still hitting you guys. Like the increase in fuel prices is still hitting you both. But then you think that you're opposing each other. So make that make sense.
You are brought into the dream. You're brought into the manufactured environment and you see what they want you to see. That's what this is. And that, I think, is why people are tapping out. This is why people want to get out. We're waiting, like in the Truman Show, when do we reach the end of the simulation? When does the boat hit the painting? When do we get out? And you start to look at the entire thing as sort of pointless. What actually are we doing? These conversations, this discourse that is happening on the timeline, it's completely simulated. It's not real. These people aren't even writing this stuff. There is no Jack Posobiec. Jack Posobiec is some human being out there in the world. His Twitter account is something else. His Twitter account might as well be run by, it's like in the Nightmare Before Christmas when they...
Yeah, I was actually having a conversation with my brother the other day, and then he made a really good point. That was that we already had this fight between good and evil evil already won. So hear me out, guys. So imagine that we're living in a world where good and evil already had a fight and evil already won. And his theory is that now we're living in that world, a world where evil already won, and now good just has to survive in a world where evil already won. That got me thinking.
Unravel the boogeyman, he's just a million bugs. That's what it is. It's people paying for this stuff. And the same goes for every one of these. And wokeness, libs of TikTok, Wall Street Maverick, Jack Posobiec, Mike Cernovich, Brylan Hollihan, all these big influencers, that's all they are. It's like when McDonald's or Wendy's or Chili's are replying to each other on Twitter. It's like when McDonald's posts and says they take a small bite out of the Arch Burger, and Chili's is going to reply, "Oop," and you think you're talking to a corporation. So I look at this and I think I can't feel anything about any of this because none of it is real. None of it is actually real. If it was real, this guy wouldn't have made it to the security checkpoint to blow everybody up or blow everybody away with a shotgun.
That's a really good point, guys. I want to hear from you guys down in the comments. What do you think about this one? Because according to Nick Fuentes here, he's saying that nothing is real. If it were real, then there's no way that guy would have been able to even make it that far in the first place. DJT himself says that the guy never even made it through the first line of defense. So that would go against what Nick is saying because it looks like the guy was immediately stopped. But the fact that he could even get anywhere near the premises is already bothersome enough, because what if, like Nick pointed out earlier, what if it wasn't knives and guns that he went there with? What if he went there with an explosive with some range of damage, right? Then we could be having a completely different discussion right now. But thank God he didn't get to that. But yeah, I don't know if you guys feel it too, but it seems like the world has just kind of moved on from it. And that just should really get you worried and should really let you know where we are as a society. Where an attempt at the life of the president, and it's just every normal day. That is how bad we've gotten. That's how volatile the situation of things are in the world today. Be sure to hit that like, be sure to hit the subscribe button. I bring you videos like these almost on a daily basis, and I'm always happy to hear from you guys in the comments. I read every single comment. For those of you who are already rocking with me, thank you so much for smashing the subscribe button. Thank you for liking the videos. Thank you for all your support as we continue to push towards 1,000 subs. I really appreciate you guys for rocking with me, and I'll see you on the next one.